evening. Good evening. I'm Pete Hoffman. I'm here to welcome all of you on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Hermosa Beach Museum, and thank you for coming tonight. This is a special occasion for me, as for many of the rest of you. A few years back to you, I hate to think how time has gone by, when the mural committee was doing the murals, we all looked at the mural, the Great Wave down there, as maybe our crowning accomplishment. And I had the unique honor of introducing John at that occasion. And Ryan somehow figured, well, so with that precedent, I had to introduce our guest tonight and the program tonight. So that's why I'm here. But before I do that, a couple of comments or a couple of things to think about. The first and most important, I guess, is I want to make sure I get the date correct. The annual donors meeting for the museum is going to be a kind of a special one this year as well. In spite of what we've done in the past, and in spite of what our focus is here, obviously the history of Hermosa Beach, we're going to host that meeting at a brand new house, literally a brand new house. We're going to kind of look at that as indicative of the future of the museum. We are also embarking, as many of you are aware, on an expansion program, and somehow it seemed fitting that we're going to a new development in a new house in sort of anticipation of what we're going to be doing, hopefully, right behind us here in the what used to be known as the boys' locker room or the wood shop, the famous scene of from the movie. But anyway, we're moving into that, and it's going to require your assistance. It's an expensive proposition, and so we honor all of our donors, and I guess I'll make a blatant appeal. We hope that many of you will look at the programming that we're providing here, what Ryan has brought to the museum, and that you may think about being very generous to the museum as we begin a capital campaign for our expansion. But the donors meeting is going to be on Sunday, May 17th. It's at 3 o'clock from 3 to 5 in the afternoon at a really special new home. I think you'll enjoy that, if nothing else. I guess it'll be our version of sophisticated Snoops, and we'll take a look at one new home anyway. The other thing I want to mention is anticipation. These after-hour programs, it's gotten to where we can hardly see them, as you guys can see. But the next one is coming up. It's going to be how Ryan comes up with these.
That's all Mark.
When you think about Hermosa Beach, what always comes immediately to mind is art in enchiladas, which is the title of our next one. It's ironic, there used to be a little artist colony in the same way that Laguna Beach and so many of the other beach cities had a sort of a historic art colony. We had one here in Hermosa. For those of you who know the town up kind of where the north end is here, and that's what it's going to be about. That restaurant in those days was called Esther's. Esther served, guess what? Enchiladas. So it's art and enchiladas. That's coming up on May 28th on Thursday, again 6 o'clock, as the program is tonight. All right, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to begin with a short film, sort of set the stage, as it were, for the surf, the Surfers Walk of Fame and so forth that we're going to be celebrating this weekend, and of course John's present here. Then we're going to pass out some cards. Ryan will pass those out for you for question and answer, so that we can have some kind of order to that. So those will come out in a little bit here, and then we're going to have a moderated discussion with our guest of honor today, and then at the end of this, a meet and greet with John and the opportunity to see firsthand some of his art that might just be for sale. Anyway, so having said all of that, it is again my tremendous honor. We really have kind of a couple of icons in the sense of South Bay culture and arts here. The first of those is Chris Miller. Chris's dad is most of Chris's dad, Warren Miller, was obviously a Hermosa Beach institution. Most of us grew up waiting for the start of the ski season. We knew that came when the film came out, and those were produced here. I had the privilege of working with some of her, I'm going to describe it to you, but some of her dad's crew and my own television stuff. So anyway, that's very close, but most of you I know Chris as sort of an institution here in Hermosa Beach. And she's going to be the moderator tonight of the discussion with our guest of honor, John Van Hamersveld. Now, John comes with no need to introduce him for all of us immediately. Oh, sure, the Endless Summer poster, but that was just like the tip of the iceberg, and you'll have an opportunity to hear about all of that as the evening goes on. And with John tonight is also his manager and wife, Lena Post, who has been an integral part of his successful career. So with that, welcome all of you again. Thank you for coming.
If you'd like to call your questions, just raise your hand. I'll be circling throughout.
Yeah, could you do that while I'm
Absolutely.
technical? First of all, thank you all for coming, and we're going to go through this, and then afterwards, everybody, if you give Ryan a card, he'll answer questions, and we'll sign posters, and you can come talk with John personally. Once we get, so, first of all, I'll say I just got nervous for some reason, but thank you for being here, John, and yeah, you get your own microphone.
High tech.
High tech. So when we were doing this, setting this up, we tried to figure out where to start so that we could cover all this before it gets tomorrow. So we decided to start in the beginning. And
So this is the Lunada Bay Gang, and it's Phil Becker in the center there that I grew up with. I met him when I was 10 and he was 11, and we went surfing.
And there's John.
John's on the
Yeah, you're
yeah,
in the stripe.
and Becker's in the center.
And
Jared Eaton's on the other side there.
they grew up across the street, across a bean field in Palos Verdes in Lunada Bay. And the two of them, you can give us a little background. They were in Cub Scouts, Webelos. They started surfing together.
Yeah, when we were around like 14, I got my first surfboard when I was entering high school.
Right.
And we had to find somebody who was 16 to drive us.
And you saw in the film where he went to the Jacobs Belsey shop. And the story about the deer, I think is pretty funny, is they were hunting in the Santa Monica Mountains before.
Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah, so Belsey and Jacobs had bows and arrows, and they were, shooting, hunting, with these points and everything, deer up there. What a time.
But his memories of the head of the deer as he's starting this career as a surfer to like the juxt of all this world that you walked into. But and as you went along, that surfing led you to Malibu and Mickey-Dora and
Yeah, so so we would go to all these surf spots up and down the coast of California, and in each one there'd be like 20, 25 kids and a few older guys. And it was just an amazing sort of thing. So I would go to high school, and on the weekends I would be gone. So I really didn't have a social life with high school. It was all based upon these groups of people up and down the coast, and then the waves from the north and the waves from the west and the waves from the south. So it was like a whole kind of dimensional world that had nothing to do with my parents, my teachers. And so that all had to kind of come to a point where I had to go to art school. So.
And this is Belsey and Hap in front of the shop when they moved eventually here to Hermosa Beach, and John kept track of them. So at 22, you started art school.
So I took off a semester and I created a magazine called Surfing Illustrated, and John Severson got mad. And so he called me up, and he had me at a restaurant, and he said, I'm gonna hire you, and you can't turn me down. And so he moved me to Dana Point, and I became his art director. I was like 20, 21, 22 years old. But I was, in stature, I was tall, I was 6'2", and looked the part. And so in this little tiny town of Dana Point was Hobie, Clark Foam, and Surfer magazines. It was like the whole kind of transition of bohemian to modernism. And so I was going to Art Center College of Design, going back and forth every other day or so. And so during that time, I created this poster called The Endless Summer, but it was a modernist poster because of the school that I went to, Art Center College of Design. And so it's interesting how that poster has never, and it's never slowed down. It still goes on. It's just a miracle, a trademark, that represents everything.
Thank you. I'm a graduate of Art Center as well. There's a couple of graduates from Art Center. We all followed in John's footsteps a little bit. After you did the poster and you were working for a while, you went on to...
Yes, right, okay. So I do the poster. John Severson says I'll never work in the industry ever again. In total jealousy, right? So I go to art school, and about 2 years goes by, and a kid runs into the class, and he has a New York Times newspaper, and he opens it up, and these ads of The Endless Summer, the poster's there. And so Warren Miller calls me and says, hey, I've got a poster for you. So it was sent over to my loft, and then from there, I had to get a job because it was the end of the semester. So someone says, well, why don't you go to Capitol Records, So I had this portfolio, and I had this big Day-Glow poster sitting in it. So I go up the elevator, and I go in to see this guy, George Osaki. He says, I've got an interesting thing for you. So the next appointment was going up to the executive floor, and I walk in the door, and there's this guy,
Brown Briggs. Right, yeah.
Yes, okay.
He was the president of the company, okay.
He's the vice president of the company. And he was the one who signed the Beatles to the label. So he had a New York office and he had an LA office. And because he saw what happened to the Beatles and the Endless Summer in New York, he looked at me and said, you're going to work for me and you can't turn me down. And so automatically, from rags to riches, I'm elevated to this art director of Capitol Records.
And he, along the way, designed over 300 record albums in the height of rock and roll. And along the way, you also did some concerts.
The album cover had to be different, and because I had 3 disciplines, I was able to manipulate, from photography to art to design. And then record covers would go up the ladder, to number 1, and then they would go down. So it was just like a casino every week, and the record store would have to be packed and empty. So.
And there's one in particular that I think we all recognize, which is Exile on Main Street with Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
And John, he has a great story about his encounter with Mick Jagger.
So I was in London at the Beatles office, and I met a lot of different people, and there was a woman there that was dating. So I go back to New York and then back to California. 3 years goes by, and I'm in the record business doing these covers. And we get this call at the office, and it's this woman that I had met. She says, well, why don't you come up to the mansion and meet Mick Jagger? So So out of nowhere, Norman Seif and I go up to this mansion, and I'm walking through the place, and he's taking photographs of the Stones, and so I have Mick Jagger and Keith Richards in front of me, and I'm showing them the Endless Summer poster, if you can imagine. And then I had done the Jefferson Airplane Crown Creation, which was like the top album. It was like the Rolling Stones of America. And they're very cool. And so we left, and then I get this call that I'm going to be the designer of the cover. And so Jagger and I we work the whole cover out, and it turns into this incredible campaign. But the industry thought it was the ugliest cover they ever saw. But it essentially, apparently, the way it goes is John Lydon says that it started the punk movement in terms of punk graphics.
So, just after this moving up in time, there were over 200, this was in the movie too, but at one point, up Sunset Boulevard and all through Orange County, were these billboards that had the Johnny face on it, and it became this, again, another wave of iconic images that people saw everywhere they went.
So I had met a printer who kind of liked what I did, what I would do, and so he essentially would offer these deals to me. He said, "Okay, well, John, we can do a billboard campaign and swap it for a motorcycle company, and you'll get some pay. You'll get billboards out of it." So I had 100 billboards in LA and 100 billboards in Orange County, and I made sure that each one of the billboards was in front of the record companies.
And there's just a side note, he was wearing this shirt when he went to meet Mick Jagger, and ended up giving Mick one of these Crazy World Ain't It t-shirts, and it became, again, a fashion, because Mick Jagger was seen photographed wearing it. It became everybody, again, and how these things kept happening. So in 1974, John was explaining a lot of the things that happened in the 60s showed up in companies and in business in the 70s. And like this is the Grateful Dead's, like their best.
So it'd be courted by people, and they would say, "Okay, so we want you to do this album cover." So I, did the drawing and everything, and I turned it over to the guy, and he took it up to the Grateful Dead, and they said they hated it, but the corporation, Warner Brothers, had to go with it. And so it turns out to be their very best selling album cover. So you never know.
And of the 300, I mean, we could be here all day. We highlighted, because obviously we know Kiss, he did Blondie. I mean, the list is forever.
The list is 300 long.
And to try to keep up with where John is going all this time, we went over some of the highlights. So in 1984, he took Jimmy Z, and he started doing a lot of logos. So he did.
So
there's a poster behind you on the wall. For those of us that are old enough to have seen the 80s, okay, Jimmy Z was a really nice. It was like a early hang.
So the album covers had turned into MTV, and so I moved to Malibu. And so I set up the studio there, and then one night, Ganser and his partner called from the gate, and they say, "We want to come and see you, we've got something interesting." And so they come to the door and they say, "Okay, we want you to do a trademark for us," And so this trademark just became this incredible phenomenon. It was like on everything, in embroidery and printed and billboards and all that. Fantastic.
Yeah, there's even one with the Hermosa Beach, early Hermosa Beach surf team in there somewhere.
Are you teasing me?
And if we jump through time, it's because John was doing that. So here's a little highlight, stepping back to 1983. And maybe you'll know this name, Steve Jobs gave John one of the first computers
The Lisa computer,
The Lisa computer, personally,
just to see what I would say.
and in order to see if a graphic designer could actually utilize what this new computers were doing. And
Yeah, so we had dialogue for, almost 10 years as the computer was developed, and there were other designers he was feeding his technology to. And then he left the corporation and started a new one called Next, yeah. And then Next, he was there for a couple of years, but the technology that he developed and the computers he would bring over to the studio were just unbelievable. And then when he went back, he just sort of took that technology and then progressively added it to the marketplace, and you have your computer today, which is really a Next computer.
oh. So also, those of us that were here for the 84 Olympics, I'm not sure if you remember this image, but surrounding the entire Coliseum was John's images of the art or the athletes. And this is John up on the billboard.
So how did I get that job?
Yes, how did you get that
So
job?
I had a haircut, and I wore a seersucker suit, and I must have had 40 meetings with various people until they said, okay, we're gonna give you this job. So will you do a 360-foot mural for us? So I said, wow, okay. And so they had a painter in Pomona, so I had to go out there like every other day or so, all the way out there and then back again, just to see these painters. And the painters were alcoholics, so they would because of the sun and these big open, easels. They didn't want to handle paint in that particular environment, so they would go to the bar, and then like around 6 o'clock or so, then they'd come out and they'd start painting it. So they painted all these big canvases, and then they mounted them on the wall, and it's like went halfway around the Coliseum. Fantastic. And then I got a poster as well from Saul Bass.
And the banners that we used to see driving around town, those were but hanging everywhere. So, and then,
there's a guy from
Blackwell, who owned Island Records. And so Blackwell, he was actually the one that discovered Bob Marley. Chris Blackwell. He discovered. Help me here with all the discoveries.
Oh, traffic, B-52s. He didn't. Robert Palmer.
Yeah, Island Records.
Island Records, yeah.
Island Records.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But he also owned
Record store.
Fatburger. So
a couple of fellows, from the neighborhood of, Boston around there had conned, Blackwell into like this thing called Fatburger, and it was a little store on Western Boulevard, and they wanted to do a franchise of it. So I got involved in it, and so I was flying back and forth from over to Florida and then down to the Caribbean. And we talked it all over, and then, he walked out and he wrote a check for $50,000, and I started the project. But he also said, I want you to do the stores as well. So you get to do the trademark and you get to do the stores. So I became an architect of these fast food chain restaurants.
And he did Fatburger, and it's represented there as the Broadway Deli. Do you remember the Broadway Deli? Yeah.
And Fatburger is about the color.
Why is all this here?
I think
That's
a little
competition.
his is bigger. His is the biggest.
This is AI, man. He threw this into AI and it's coming up with all the spirits.
Okay, so there's over 200, there's one in Redondo Beach, y'all have seen it. So part of the traversing of all these different,
There's 9 of them in China.
there's 9 in China.
There's 2 in Dubai.
Oh, that's cool. So this is like an overview of, John did, besides the 300 record albums, 150 posters, and a lot of these are posters and trademarks. And so this is just kind of the different years. And
So this is the culture going by
that's it.
over the decades.
It's like the waves of time going past, but these, and then there's another set. So part of what, it's just impossible to put this all into 25 minutes, so, but, let's see what okay. So, any of you that have ever been to downtown Las Vegas, you know Fremont Street? So, this is a good,
So Alita and I went to a trade show, and we met this woman who was a PR agent, and she called one day when we were in LA at the studio, and she said, "So would you come up and see us? Because I think we have something for you." So we go out and we meet these two gentlemen, you know, and all of a sudden I'm taken into this room where there's all these big, huge computers, and he says, "We want a design that can run for 7 minutes, animated, you know, and you have a look that we want, you know." So there's 74 million LED lights that light up and make the patterns. Oh my gosh. You know, and so from one end to the other, I had things moving back and forth, and then rolling over and around and everything in this cavity, this sort of, you know, dome-like sort of thing, with people walking up and down the street with the casinos and the drinks and the hot dogs and hamburgers.
and there's music set to it, but you can't see it because they're not on it, but those wires going by, people could zip line
And, you know,
through this whole,
and then bringing the posters from 1964, the Indian, taking it into that environment, you know, and being able to explode it.
Wow.
So, you know, just incredible.
it's,
So it ran for 8 years, 80 million people saw it.
Wow.
It's like a big movie.
it's one of the best shows. Now, welcome home, everyone, because in 2015, the mural project brought John to Hermosa Beach. And you can see in the upper photo how wonderful that wall looked without John in it. And if we fast forward, and again, this is,
The funny part of the story is that, you know, Cody from the paper calls me up.
That guy's here.
There he is. He calls me up. He takes me down, you know, to meet these people, and they don't like me. And so they found an architect in the village here, you know, and then they talked their way into doing the design, and then finally we got it all painted and done. But it was a technology that I had that I was able to do it digitally and then have it done in strips printed on canvas. So I didn't have to paint it, I just overlapped one after another. And so probably it's lasted longer than a paint job, you know, done by a normal, you know, artist.
it's on 14th Street and Hermosa Avenue, if anybody, if you haven't seen it, please go see it.
And don't miss the little guy at the end here, he's so cute, who's dressed like John.
Oh,
And so there's Joe and the little kid looking at each other.
Oh, that's
Little kid way
sweet.
down there.
Oh, that's-
It's just hard to see him, I just love that photo.
oh, that's so sweet. Thank
It's
you.
like, you know, like 6 years old, dressed in all black, I mean, it's fantastic.
John is an icon. People are, so across the street from here, anyone has ever noticed, there's a Vans. And in 2018, John was hired by the Vans company to bring his art to their shoes. And
Bring some of my symbols, yeah, to the culture of surf, yeah.
Shirts and
t-shirts,
decks, yeah, they did a
spandex?
skate decks.
Oh, skate decks.
And shoes and, which I have a lot of size 13s if anybody's interested. And, yeah, it was a huge line, and then we also did the Disney, Mickey's 90th birthday So there were skate decks. John did 2 images for Mickey's birthday, and that was with bands and with Disney. And so those were also shoes and skate decks and t-shirts and everything else. So we had two lines running with them.
Okay, so now in 2018, you saw this at the end of the film, the DWP brought John in to create one of the largest murals ever, right? Other than maybe the Coliseum might have been a little bit.
No, this is bigger.
This is bigger.
Wait.
And what's great about this is,
So it's 30 feet high and 550 feet around, something like that. And it's on wires, and the sheets are, I guess it was like 15 or 13 by 30 or something like that. And so they're consecutively put across and around the thing. But the interesting part of all of it is that, I was awarded, an award at a high school, so in front of this audience one day, and
El Segundo. Inducted into El Segundo Hall of Fame, the high school Hall of Fame. We're trying to remember everything.
there's a lot.
So after the event, I go up up the audience walkway and down the hall to a restaurant, or the cafeteria, and there are these sort of chairs in a circle. We sit down and start to eat, and Alina's next to me. The woman comes up from the other side. She says, "Would you do a billboard for us? Or a mural, And so I say, yeah, so go talk to Alina." So we, end up doing this amazing monument there. You can see it from the airplane as you were leaving.
The helicopter shot.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I'm just going to mention, if you could go right back, and you can see how we were hanging it, because the building, the reason we couldn't adhere the panels to the building is because the building has lead paint. And if one piece fell off, everything would have had to be shut down. So that's why we hung these panels that
the
way.
environmental.
So, yeah, and then you can see, because no one ever gets to see unless you're in an airplane, you can see the inside, how rusted out that thing is. So, a lot of you probably know that the whole thing faded out, and it was like gone really for a couple of years. It just, because of the,
8 years.
yeah, 8 years, the ocean and the air and everything else, so it finally faded out. And the good news is that we are actually in the process right now of having it all reprinted and rehung. So everybody and boy, that wasn't easy. Oh,
Yeah.
it's just gonna be fantastic. So it's all getting redone.
And if you want to know the location of it, it's at the top of Grand Hill as you go up. It's impossible to miss it. It's
Oh, yeah,
huge.
yeah.
And they're pretty much close to finishing.
And if you take off and
It'll be a
Oh, yeah, if you fly off, it's off to the west. It's off to the south. But it's, after 8 years, they reprinted it, and it's brand
doing
new,
it right now.
right now as we speak.
Building them as I speak.
And a lot of what we're going to cover here is John's murals. This is the Cabrillo Aquarium. These are the Garibaldi and this octopus. These are, again, this is not the size. They're the size of how.
Yeah, if there's a person standing, and this is all hand-drawn. Everything is hand-drawn. And if you're standing in front of this mural, you're only about this big. So that fish is huge. And you'll see the posters, because we have a Respect the Locals to raise money for all the wonderful places in San Pedro that are saving animals. And then this is John's psychedelic octopus. And this mural is just a fraction of it. It's huge, it's really long, beautiful mural. And then we have 2 others at the aquarium there, and then 2 coming up at the Marine Mammal Center.
And we're only highlighting a few. I mean, this is really.
I forgot bird rescue, but.
Yeah, we have, like, seriously. And this is the poster from the movie we saw earlier, and if any of us have been to the Beach Life, this was the cover of the Beach Life Ranch in 2023. And we're moving right now at LAX, if anyone gets to fly out of here or come in. These are in all the terminals. They're, again, large, oversized murals, and it welcomes all the visitors to LA, and this is John's work. I've seen him walking through the terminals, and it's hard to see how magnificent they are, because they're really larger than life.
And this one is done for, this was the one to welcome everybody for the tourism, all the different tourism people from all over the world came. We were the hosts of the convention. So these were everywhere. There were banners in downtown LA. It was just an incredible experience. And now the one that's at LAX now is for FIFA. Because this was actually originally done for FIFA, and then LA Tourism took it and were using it for other things. One thing I would like to mention, because it was the coolest thing that ever happened to us, is that at the convention center, LA Tourism actually built all of it. And their booth was all of these buildings all built. And they did the mountains, and they had the clouds hanging, and they brought the sun down, and there were cars and waves and palm trees. Watching something.
Yeah, the translation into, from physical to
three-dimensional was just unbelievable, because the buildings were all taller than we would all be. So this has been very dear to us. It's really been a lot of fun, is LA.
So this goes on every day. So.
Yes. So, so this is the opportunity for you to ask questions of John
We do
yourself.
have the cards. There are cards.
Yeah,
We can pass those forward, please, or pass those to me. I can bring them
Yeah,
up.
let's bring up.
We forgot to ask you for them, sorry.
That's my job. Work the cards.
Can we tell them about the awards?
I'll pass them down to you in just a second. I'll get these up.
Get the pen down.
Here are a couple more.
Okay, let's see what we have. I think it's covered that. Oh, so this is a nice question here in Hermosa. Well, that's a good question too. I feel like Johnny Carson, if anybody. I'm Edmund fan. Okay, crack myself up. Okay. Why don't you talk about, there's somebody who would like to hear more about the Hermosa, the elements of the Hermosa mural, the mural you have here.
So I had to create a story. So it has the great wave, but then it has the older surfer and the 50s surfer, and then the up-to-date surfer, and then with the clouds going away, and all the different textures and elements that were all put together.
The evolution of the surfboard.
Yeah.
Evolution of the surfboard.
Oh, thank you.
Isn't that your surfboard? Wasn't that your surfboard? The one the guy's holding, that big long one?
Is that your surfboard?
That was your last board?
No.
Oh.
Oh, we have a board that has the mural on it. I think that's what you're talking about. That's actually.
That was for auction, yeah.
No, we have one that goes to, that's your museum show one, is the.
Yes,
the mural.
yeah.
Yeah, we have that in, we have that, oh, this is really cool. Who wrote Happenstance? Wow, really? Oh, we'll talk about that later. That was really good. Oh, this is a good one. Have you ever been asked to design an album cover for an artist you really didn't like? Who was it, and how did it impact the process and end result?
They never saw me.
Yeah. They were never together because it was the record company was just banging them out. So there was very rarely was there any connection with the artist. But did they ever ask you to design one that you just really hated having to work on?
No, it's just all.
Yeah, he just
Business, yeah.
he just kept working. Okay, well, actually, so this one, somebody's asking how we met Shepard. Actually, Shepard met us because he wanted to, because he's always been John's, it does not be that close, because he loves John so much. So I'm trying to remember, they got in touch and we went to, when he had the studio in the Wiltern building.
First we went to dinner with them, and then we did this poster, went to see his studio, and then.
Well, yeah, but it was in the Wiltern before
Yeah,
he
the
moved,
Wiltern,
before you had Obey up there. Yeah, exactly. So, and then Shepard's been a really wonderful friend. And but then the main reason he loves John so much is also he stole the Hendrix to do Andre the Giant, which is interesting because John stole so Hendrix from Glazer, but it just goes on and on. But anyway, so it's always interesting to me because people will stop and will say to me, oh, that Shepard, he knocks everyone off, he knocked John's Hendrix off and blah blah. It's like, yeah, well, he paid us real good, so fine, and he's still always, he's the one who always says that the Hendrix poster was and is the perfect poster. And he's written about it, and he speaks about it, and it's really sweet. And we did print with him. What artist influenced you the most?
Probably Milton Glaser.
Milton Glaser?
Yeah.
All right.
And Seymour Moss,
Yeah, he did the whole,
I was like,
push
I
pin.
was like 13, and my mother showed them, showed in a magazine, in Art in America, an article of the two of them. So it was a very influence to my work.
So, did you have more over there?
I do. I have one more that I think,
Because,
I wanted to bring this all back home for a minute, because these two I've grown to really appreciate and love. And one of the things that I've realized about his art is how he, I say synthesize, he says collage, how he collages life into new works. And I would love them to know, so these two met on a very auspicious time in our history. And I sometimes wonder, as artists, we've all encountered
happenstance.
Sometimes it's not what you want at the time, but in the end, it becomes something new. And do you want me to start it, and then we can?
Well, I can just.
You need the microphone.
Okay, but he's holding it for me. He's doing a really good job.
Okay. So I'll give you a little background. Alita was she grew up here in LA, but then she was smart enough to move to New York City in 1980 to become an art dealer, and spent 20 years there, pretty much 20.
Amazing to remember all that. Yeah.
Okay. But she came out here to visit. She was here for a summer, had subletted her apartment in New York, and I don't want to give away.
Well, here I'll just pick it up from there. So,
Yeah.
I was out here for the summer. So I'm gonna have to make this quick so I don't bore you all anyway. So I was out here for the summer, and it was time. Summer was over, and it was time to go back to New York. Because I was just out here working and just hanging out. So it was time to go back to New York, and I was staying up in Malibu, and I decided, gee, I've got to go into the city and see some people that I do business with, because I was packing up to go back to New York. So on September 10th, 2001, I drove into West Hollywood and I made a wrong left turn, which was ridiculous because I had made that other left turn like my whole life. And I made the wrong left turn and I ended up in front of Modern Living and I saw the Endless Summer. The Endless Summer poster was in the window. And I went, wow. I said, gee, that's interesting. Maybe I could sell it. I never heard of it. I never saw it. I knew nothing. And then I went inside and I saw the Hendrix and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I got John's name down and I went back to find him. And it took me hours to find an email address for him and I found it on Blue Cheers Manager's website. And at about 10:30 on September 10th, 2001, I wrote John a note saying, I found you even though I didn't know I was looking for you, because I knew I could sell that Hendrix. And then I went to sleep, and then the next morning was 9/11. And then I got stuck here. And then about 4 weeks later, because John was all excited that an art dealer was interested in his might sell something. So I kept trying to get rid of him, and I finally decided, okay, I'm going to meet up with you, and so I can get rid of you. So if I need to, I can get rid of you, and I can get back, get on with my life. So anyway, the rest is history. And here we are. I never went back to New York, and it's been,
22 years, or 20, almost 24, right? It's coming on 25. This year will be the 25th.
in 04.
Yes, but you met each other. And the point of that is, as artists, remember they said the more you make a mistake, the more human we are. So I just feel sometimes, there's a lot of artists here, we're all would love to have one iconic moment, but to have at least 300 or 400 of them, it's a lot to take from John. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this, because yes, and we will, don't forget, Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, you all are invited to come and watch him be inducted into our own Hermosa Surfers Walk of Fame.
Because what we were just talking about, I want to read this question. So much of your work is iconic. Is this an underlying agenda preoccupation that's intentional, or is it happy happenstance? I'm saving this one. I love this. So, when you talk about an underlying agenda, the only underlying agenda is what he comes up with. See, the best thing about John is you just leave him alone. He starts working first thing in the morning until way late at night. I know when he's like just in here in his subconscious, but he's always thinking and working. So it's hard to get him back sometimes. But so when you talk about preoccupation, that's really him being absolutely lost in his thought. It's just always going on. It's just a constant. It's unbelievable. For me, I've worked with artists. I mean, I've been selling art since 1978 and running galleries. Never. It's just remarkable to me how I had no idea of this process, and especially just being in a completely different consciousness than the rest of us. And then it is happenstance because he just trips over something. And somebody asked about AI. And that's been a real hoot because John is always ahead. The thing about John, culturally, because I used to go to the Pinnacle concerts and I remember the billboards, and I remember because I was, just enough behind him that we were his audience. And where was I going with that? So he was always, and also I worked in record stores and I used all his album covers for displays. And John has always been ahead of time. So he creates our culture, and we're like just catching up to it and being influenced by it. So that's how I always saw John, because, you
Yeah, this
know.
is AI. Take a photograph it and trace it, and then I read through it and make modifications and colorized it.
So it's just, to him, it's just another new tool, just like we did NFTs. And we had a tremendous success with NFTs at the beginning of the pandemic. And then that all just went away, because things come, things go, technology, but we embrace it all, because you never know. And that's what we need to do to keep moving forward.
Embrace the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there is an opportunity, there's some art behind, we're gonna pull the screen up and there's art behind. Come visit and
Yeah, I'm
Alita,
back there.
John would love
I'm
to
back
meet
there
you, take
by-
photos.
I'm back there at my table, I brought posters, everything, but also notice we put a few things around. There's the Jimmy Z, there's a rare magical mystery tour poster there over on the side, and then I have a couple of other pieces. And you know we have drinks, and there may be some food left. Okay.